Spider-Man is about a high school senior who gets bitten by a spider and gets superpowers. He then uses his powers to try to stop a deranged CEO who would do anything for personal gain. It's based on a comic book character created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko that premiered in 1962. This movie released into theaters on May 2nd, 2002, but was almost delayed due to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. A poster even got recalled because it had an image of the Twin Towers on it, and now it's a collector's item. This was the first live-action movie for the character, so naturally, you would hire a horror movie director for it. It starts off with 2.5 minutes of opening credits. We then see Mary Jane in Gwen Stacy's clothes. This is how she dressed in the comics. And Peter somehow chases the bus down the street, but this is before he gets his powers, but yet it seems he still has super speed, unless his bus is driving really slow. And Harry Osborn is being dropped off at the museum by his dad, because I guess he's too good for the bus.
He doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, I'm sure you two will be friends. Then we get a Spider-Man's powers explanation with different types of spiders, and the scientists have made a bunch of super spiders, but one's missing. I wonder where it is. Oh. How does a research lab lose something like this? So Peter starts taking pictures of Mary Jane with his old-ass camera, and the spider decides to bite him. I'm sure it'll be fine. Oh look, there's a list of all his powers, and apparently he gets super speed twice. It then cuts to Oscorp, where we see this glider that won't be used later, and hear about a performance enhancer with some side effects.
Violence, aggression, and insanity.
And he wants to do human testing with this. No wonder he gets this funding cut. Peter gets sick and has some Evil Dead type fever dream, and Norman decides to test the performance enhancer on himself, has a seizure, and kills his assistant. So when Peter wakes up, he doesn't need his glasses anymore, cause when's the last time you've seen a spider with glasses? Does anyone else find it creepy that he can just see into her room like this? But anyway, he misses the bus and rips this banner off, but yet no one around finds this weird. I guess he walked to school, and while he's at lunch, Mary Jane slips on some juice, and he catches her and her lunch. This actually required over 150 takes and had no CGI, just a lot of glue. And then his webbing gets stuck on his fork, although I don't know how that happened when it shoots out like this. But anyway, he then hits Flash with a tray and leaves. How does no one in the cafeteria later put it together to figure out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man when he starts getting famous? But then Flash goes after him and he punches him across the hallway. Then I guess he ditches school and sees some hairs that are growing out his fingers, and his first reaction is, I'm gonna climb this wall. That's not exactly how his wall climbing power works, but okay. After figuring out how his web powers work, his first thought is, I'm gonna swing on this stuff. I feel like he should maybe test the strength of it first, but whatever he wants to do. And I guess no one who hears him screaming finds this odd. That night, he's talking with Mary Jane, and Flash shows up in his new car, so Peter decides he's gonna get a car himself. In New York City. So what's the best way to get money? I guess wrestling. So he starts practicing his webbing, and gee, I wonder who sponsored this movie. So then Uncle Ben tries to talk to him on the way to the library, and Peter just gets mad and starts acting like a dick. So Peter has to fight in a cage match for some reason, even though none of the other fights were cage matches, so I don't know why this one is. But he just plays the avoid game.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
Put that joke in the new Spider-Man movie, see how many people get mad. Then the Rain Girls just start handing Bonesaw weapons. What the hell? But Spider-Man wins and the owner rips him off. So this guy has now seen his face, and Peter would have had to sign a waiver with his name on it, and he's going by Spider-Man here. Why does this guy not think of selling the information of who Spider-Man is when the Daily Bugle wants to figure out who Spider-Man is? But this guy gets robbed, and he kinda deserved it, and Peter lets him go. And because of that, Uncle Ben gets shot and dies. Good job. So Peter hunts him down, and the carjacker trips over a pipe, falls out a window, and dies. Good job. That night, the Green Goblin goes to the military base and blows up some exoskeleton suit that he was going to lose his funding over, so I'm guessing they're not going to get the funding then? Peter decides to improve his Spider-Man suit and then proceeds to spend $100,000 on it. Seriously, that's how much one of these suits cost. Oh look, it's the Twin Towers. When I was making this video, it was the first time I ever noticed that. So Peter sees an ad for pictures of Spider-Man in the Daily Bugle and decides to sell himself to the worst publisher ever. J. Jonah Jameson wouldn't screw him over, would he? Probably. The next scene, Norman is talking about how well Oscorp is doing, but the board decides they're gonna sell the company, and Norman just gets pissed. Yeah, he's gonna freak out. Sometime later, everyone's at a Unity Day festival, and the Green Goblin decides he's gonna attack this balcony with the board and his son on it, because screw his son. He knew he would be there and he can see him right here, but does it anyway. Good thing all the board members decided to all gather in the corner so they could all die from this bomb, and in comes Spider-Man to save this stupid kid and have a cheesy fight. Seriously, I love how cheesy this movie seems now. And he saves Mary Jane. So, are you ready for the best swing sequence in the series? Her hair is blowing the wrong way, Spider-Man is obviously a dummy, and she is barely even holding on to him. Due to this, the Daily Bugle starts printing crap about the Green Goblin and Spider-Man, so Green Goblin gets pissed and tries to find out who's taking pictures of Spider-Man.
Who's the photographer who takes the pictures of Spider-Man?
I don't know who he is. His stuff comes in the mail.
You're lying!
Well, at least Jameson has some integrity. It shows that deep down he kind of cares about his employees. Then Spider-Man shows up and Goblin sprays him with knockout gas. Where did he get knockout gas? And offers Spider-Man to join him. I guess a day after he had to rescue Mary Jane's dumbass again, there's an apartment fire. So Spider-Man goes in, rescues a baby, and then goes back in for who he thinks is a woman, but it's the Green Goblin. Wait, did Goblin start the fire in the hopes that Spider-Man would show up? Or did he just see a fire and go into it in the hopes that Spider-Man would show up? Either way, this is a terrible plan. But Spider-Man gets cut by this thing, and that's how he finds out Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Did he really not think of maybe putting a bandage over it? But then Goblin goes after Aunt May. Is he trying to give her a heart attack? Jeez. I mean, I guess it worked, cause she's in the hospital now. So Mary Jane visits, and Parker basically makes it obvious that he's Spider-Man, but good thing she's too dumb to realize it. Or maybe it's a bad thing, because Green Goblin kidnaps her. So he takes her to the top of a bridge and blows this thing up for literally no reason. I never figured out why he does this. Yeah, it knocks this cable car loose, but there's other ways to do it. So the cops are coming now, right? No? Okay. How is this glider strong enough to pull this whole cable car up? Anyway, Goblin gives Spider-Man a choice to save the kids in the cable car or Mary Jane. It's just a good thing she's not Gwen Stacy, because Gwen's death is what this part is based on. So he managed to save both and stays there while the barge gets under him, and Mary Jane just screams in his ear. But Goblin makes him drop the cable, and I don't know how Mary Jane catches the edge like this. She must be strong as hell. Now Goblin decides to stab him instead of punching him, but I don't know why he didn't do this the first time. But then he gets stopped by the cheesiest group in the world.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
So after everyone's rescued, Goblin throws Spider-Man into an abandoned building and blows him up with a pumpkin bomb. I don't know how he survives this. So after some fighting and stuff, Goblin tries to trick Spider-Man into just standing there so he can stab him with his glider.
Oh.
Okay, the way that they are standing, and the fact that these blades went through this thick wall, means that even if he hit Spider-Man, the blades would have gone through him and impaled both of them. So he would have died anyway. So Parker brings his body back home and Harry sees him, so Harry swears vengeance to get Spider-Man for sequel bait. By the way, this last swing was originally off of the flagpole on the Twin Towers. I still feel like this is one of the best Spider-Man movies ever made. I really like Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, but I feel like he could have been more of a smart aleck as Spider-Man. Willem Dafoe does a great job as Norman and Green Goblin because he's really creepy in the role. The rest of the cast does a fantastic job in their roles also. The CGI still holds up for the most part, but there are some parts that are pretty obviously fake compared to today's standards. The fighting and action scenes are really cheesy, but that was the style at the turn of the millennium, and it's part of the movie's charm. Besides, what else would you expect from Sam Raimi? Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and thanks for watching.